All right, ladies and gentlemen, MrSotko here. Welcome back to the channel. Got a whole bunch of good crypto news stuff for you. And the first thing I want to talk about is Paul Roux, the drug dealer, the drug kingpin and overlord, and he's got quite a history. And he was once a Satoshi Nakamoto candidate, kind of still is, just because he made a lot of encryption and possibly the link to him. There are some older videos about that I have on my channel, but this particular article here has something a little bit hidden in it that I didn't really see anybody else talking about, and who knows? So Paul Roux, in a last-ditch attempt to avoid incarceration, wrote a letter to District Judge Ronnie Abrams of the Southern District of New York this week, detailing his personal history and addressing his alleged crimes. He was indicted on drug charges in 2012, pled guilty 2 years later, and has been sitting in detention since. And he was also accused of many other things, but he was sort of caught, I think, in Argentina or Brazil and then extradited to the United States. So I think that's the only thing they actually really got him on. On Friday, he was reportedly sentenced to 25 years, though he can appeal the decision. Even if Roux wins an appeal, he would still face extradition to the Philippines, where he is wanted on murder charges dating back to 2010. Should he be released by both courts in the U.S. and the Philippines, however, he has a planned next step, which is kind of interesting. A plan to start selling and hosting Bitcoin miners, he wrote in a letter to the judge. The letter provides some background on what Bitcoin is and how it works, including how coins are mined through the use of ASICs, powerful chips designed for the task. Roux claimed he acquired related expertise working for the UK Signals Intelligence Agency, known as the Government Communications Headquarters. I have a custom design for an ASIC chip that utilizes special optimizations, which is a little interesting. I think that's should be underlined in the underlying computer code or algorithm known as SHA, or SHA-256. I obtained this knowledge about the mathematical properties of SHA while working as a contract programmer in London in the early 2000s. And these optimizations allow me to create an ASIC chip design and therefore ASIC miners that are on an order of magnitude faster at Bitcoin mining than any current design, he wrote. To this end, I plan to put my knowledge and skills to a better legal use. And it goes on to talk about Satoshi claims, but that's not really what I'm talking about here. So first of all, Paul Roux will probably almost certainly never escape a prison sentence. His backstory is so long. You could for sure write a book about him. The things he has done is pretty crazy, and if you haven't actually read like a short biography on Paul Roux, it's pretty intense. But I question this. So once again, the quote is, I have a custom design for an ASIC chip that utilizes special optimizations in the underlying code of SHA, which, we actually have one of those. So this was back in the early 2000s. He learned about this, this underlying code. And what do we have today? Well, we have this thing called ASIC Boost that the Bitmain miners, ASIC miners, can utilize. In fact, they were set up for it for a long time, but it wasn't until just a couple years ago that they actually released the code in the software for the machines to actually start using this. Now, one thing you have to understand is that Bitcoin, ASIC Boost is sort of an exploit with SHA-256. Now, I think it's pretty complicated to talk about, but it essentially gives you a huge advantage in your hash rate, which you could also just calculate at that as, it does the same hash rate for this amount of power, or it does more hash rate with this power. Either way you want to look at it. And ASIC Boost does not work on Bitcoin. It used to, because Bitcoin underwent a change of SegWit, and during that change, it sort of bricked ASIC Boost. And my theory is that once they started talking about ASIC Boost, Bitmain got a little bit scared, and once SegWit was talked about, Bitmain got a little bit scared. So they got together and, along with some other people, created Bitcoin Cash, because Bitcoin Cash does not have SegWit and you can use ASIC Boost on it. So that would always make sure that their miners and they as a company are always going to be ahead on the Bitcoin Cash in the hash rate. So I wonder if this special optimization that Paul LaRue is talking about, that was figured out back in the 2000s, and ASIC Boost was created by these two individuals, and then Bitmain actually used it. So it wasn't Bitmain that made ASIC Boost or thought of the idea. So I'm wondering if the ASIC Boost is actually this optimization in the code of SHA 256, and that's what he's talking about. But he has been in prison since 2012, which is before. Pleaded guilty 2 years later. So yeah, he's been in prison since like 2012, and ASIC Boost wasn't really talked about for a few years after that. It wasn't really fully fleshed out. So I wonder if it was actually fleshed out in the government communication headquarters of London, the Signals Intelligence Agency, and he knew about this, and he plans to make ASIC miners that utilize this, but he doesn't actually know that it's already out, unless this is something totally different and he has some secret that nobody else knows about. And in that case, other people do know about it, and it would be intelligence agencies, and it would be sort of a way to exploit Bitcoin, maybe. So it's actually kind of there's a lot to actually talk about. Actually, a lot more questions and answers when you read that quote there. Is it ASIC Boost? Is it something else? What do you mean, Paul LaRue? But I don't think we'll ever really find out, because there's just no way this guy's not going to prison. Again, just read the whole rap sheet, and it's pretty long. So moving on to different news. New York Fed. Bitcoin is just another fiat, says the Federal Reserve, or the New York Federal Reserve branch, I suppose. Bitcoin, the decentralized, permissionless, and trustless digital value system. Boy, that's a long one. That's kind of like whenever, what's the Game of Thrones lady, the dragon lady, every time she'd come up, and she had like 18 different names that you'd have to say before you could actually introduce her. That an anonymous programmer, up over a decade ago, they say that it's just another example of fiat money, said Michael Lee and Antoine Martin in a Thursday blog post. Bitcoin may be money, but it is not a new type of money, they say. I don't know about that one. Dollar bills are fiat. Gigantic limestone wheels were once fiat, and Bitcoin is fiat as well, they said. Well, I guess if you word it that way, that gigantic limestone wheels were money, I think the word fiat it sort of rubs Bitcoiners the wrong way, and their argument appeared to employ a definition of fiat money as being an intrinsically worthless object whose sole value derives from the bearer's belief he or she can use it for goods. Well, that would be like the definition of just money. Fiat is just sort of a different thing. It's what the government uses, and they just sort of print money and say, hey, yeah, you could definitely pay your taxes with this, but it didn't really, it barely costed us anything to make this. I'm sure there's a long supply and logistics chain of making actual money, but it's not backed by anything. But such a definition misclassifies the nature of Bitcoin by botching the very meaning of fiat, said Nick Carter, a partner at the blockchain-focused Castle Island Ventures and frequent crypto commentator. Carter said that the Latin root of fiat, decree, invokes in fiat money a sense of value by authoritative mandate. This dollar bill has value because the issuing authority, which he pointed out has the monopoly on violence and taxes too, said so. But that is not all the case with Bitcoin, he said. I don't know what their intent is to denigrate Bitcoin, but it comes off that way, he said in a tweet. So it's hard to actually define what Bitcoin is and how it's good and why it's good, but the idea that it is fiat money is absolutely nonsense. I would say that you could argue for fiat money that it's not just entirely made out of thin air. I mean, in the US dollar, the euro, etc. As there is a lot of logistics behind it. There's a lot of work behind it, and the whole world is working for it in some way, shape, or form. Whether you're flipping burgers, or you're a computer programmer, this, that, or the other thing, or you're a construction worker, etc., you're working for it, and your labor is kind of producing it, but the problem is there's a central bank, and the inflation is pretty wild. Not so much when you look at other nations that have undergone inflation over the years, but Bitcoin is certainly not fiat. Completely backed by a lot of electricity and time. I would say that it's also backed by time. Electricity itself, and to say that it's not backed by anything, is sort of the next topic. Donald Trump, Treasury Secretary, says to go after Bitcoin. So, United States President Donald Trump wanted to take his apparent dislike of Bitcoin off Twitter and onto the regulatory level, according to former National Security Advisor John Bolton. On June 18th, article of Forbes about Bolton's new book, The Room Where It Happened, reveals Bolton heard Trump tell Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin to go after Bitcoin. The conversation between Trump and Mnuchin was regarding trade sanctions and tariffs against China in May 2018. So perhaps trying to curtail movement of Bitcoin that would normally be sanctioned or have tariffs on it, which I can understand a little bit, but that could also mean a lot of things. It could sort of, go after Bitcoin. It could mean a lot of bad things. Now, I don't think the United States, I don't think most of the world is ever going to ban Bitcoin. We've seen a few bans here and there with various countries. We've also seen like the exchange ban in China, which had a big effect on Bitcoin. We were at 4,900. It was like 5,000 Bitcoin in September 2017. And then that news came out within a week or two. Bitcoin was at like $3,200, which is a significant drop. We've certainly seen that today. We've seen that over and over. But back in the day, when that was the all-time high, 5,000, and then it dumps to 3,200, pretty much halves, is an incredible drop over a week or two. So that's how bad the news could go. When people say that, oh, the governments can't stop Bitcoin, my response to that is they can certainly try. They can do a pretty good job of it. So we are sort of on thin ice with Bitcoin being so popular. Now it's got the attention of governments and stuff. That's when it starts to get a little bit dangerous. It's like when you become famous or a celebrity, you can no longer just live in your trailer park, right? Because everybody's going to be at your door all the time. You got to move to a more secure place. So you kind of did it to yourself by becoming famous, etc. And that's kind of like Bitcoin, where the money is, all the institutions are going. And the reason why I don't think most, at least major nations or the majority of nations in the world, too big of a business now. And we got Coinbase, we got Kraken, we got Binance, we got all these different exchanges, we got these institutions getting in on it now, and to just rip that all away would cause massive, unbelievable amounts of money. Imagine if the U.S. government said, we ban all U.S. exchanges. Could you imagine how quickly you would go to Coinbase or Kraken, etc., and sell all of your Bitcoin and get your fiat so that you could either put it somewhere else in the world or put it in a different coin or get your coin off there? It would be quite the rally, let's say. So it's not the first time Trump expressed a dislike for the cryptocurrency, which makes total sense with Trump. It just totally makes sense. He went on a Twitter tirade in July 2019, which he called Bitcoin not money and based on thin air, because nobody ever explained to him what Bitcoin is and how it's definitely based on the fact that 11 years have gone by, which you kind of have to understand Bitcoin itself to understand what 11 years means. It means a blockchain is so long that it would just be physically impossible, computationally impossible to go back and change things. The further the blockchain gets along, the harder it is to go even further back. And change things or double spend, etc. And it's not really based on thin air. It requires a lot of electricity and requires the trust of mathematics. It's based on mathematics, electricity, and time. And again, I think saying that to someone real quick, but in February this year, Mnuchin said at a hearing that he would be announcing some significant new requirements for cryptocurrencies with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, alluding to more oversight by the federal government to prevent money laundering, because they seem to think that, they claim that BTC and other cryptocurrencies are used for more money laundering more often than cash is, which I wonder if that's actually true. When I think about that, of course, there's more cash out there in the world than there is crypto. Crypto is like this, and cash is, you probably couldn't even scale it right. But I suppose you could look at it as a matter of statistics, or like the 70, like you could say that like 50% of Bitcoin is used for money laundering or some kind of crime, whereas only 2% of fiat money is used for crime and money laundering, something like that, right? So it could be disproportionately higher. However, even with that disproportionately higher, the entire market cap of cryptocurrency, less than 300 billion at the moment, 263 billion. There's not much money laundering that could be done really with it. And I just don't see it as much of a problem. I think more embracing it. But, so the federal government, of course, they're going to be on it more and more. And I think exchanges are going to slowly lose non-KYC. So the exchanges out there that you may use now that don't have KYC, and you like that because you can just sign up with an email and trade, and nobody has to worry about your taxes, or nobody has to bother you about how much money you have or how much money you don't have. And I think that's going to go away pretty fast. We see less and less and less exchanges that do not require KYC. And I think any exchange that does not require KYC is going to be a target for governments. I think Coinbase and Kraken and the big ones and Binance and stuff are just going to be fueling corporations and governments with information about your crypto practices. It's just the way it is. It became too popular. There's too much money in it now, and there's too many eyes on it. So I think 2017 really flipped cryptocurrency around in a fundamental way. So moving on. To some somewhat sad news, Robinhood vows to improve platform following customer tragedy. So basically, there was a trader on Robinhood, and he got a prompt that his account was negative $730,000, I guess, waking up one morning, and he ended up taking his own life. That was Alexander Kearns. And that's quite unfortunate. It's probably not the first time this has happened with trading, whether it be the stock market or cryptocurrency itself. Probably won't be the last time. It's very unfortunate. It was actually Robinhood's fault. And I really hate this exchange. I really do. And I think it was Tone Vase actually used this as you can go on Twitter. You'll probably see it immediately. I'm sorry I didn't bring it up already. But Tone Vase, he probably deleted the email by now, but he basically made it into a meme of this person who killed himself to say that this is why you use my $3,000 Bitcoin course, or like people made fun of my $3,000 Bitcoin trading course, and this is why, basically. So you're a douchebag, Tone Vase. That's such a douche move. Holy crap, what a douche move. But it's a real thing. I'm sure you guys could just Google it in a second. Tone Vase and Robinhood, or whatever you need to do. But I want to talk about Robinhood real quick. I do want to talk about this case. Alexander Kearns, a 20-year-old customer of stock and cryptocurrency trading platform Robinhood, committed suicide on June 12th. This tragedy reportedly occurred after an erroneous negative balance of more than $730,000 appeared in Kearns' account. This error has prompted the platform to take measures in order to improve the platform's offering. According to the official announcement, Robinhood is considering additional criteria and education for customers seeking level 3 options authorization. They state that this may help ensure customers understand the platform's sophisticated options trading features. They note they will also be expanding educational content related to options trading, while also rolling out improvements to in-app messages. The company also announced a $250,000 donation to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Well, thank you, I guess, for that donation, or well, they thank you, but a little too late on that. But anyway, so it was an erroneous message. So basically, it was wrong. It was a bug somehow. And why that would ever say negative $730,000 in the first place, I don't know. But first of all, Robinhood, don't trade on Robinhood. Don't ever trade on Robinhood. Please don't trade on Robinhood. First of all, when you go to Robinhood, you have to just essentially put fiat money into the system with your credit card, and then let's say you buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, or you buy one whole Bitcoin, right? That's not your Bitcoin. You don't actually have control of your wallet. So you can't send that Bitcoin somewhere else, and you can't send it off the platform, and you can't send Bitcoin to the platform. It only works by putting in your credit card or your bank account and sending money to them, then trading it back and forth, and then getting your fiat back. So you're not actually buying cryptocurrency. You don't own it. It doesn't exist. You can't put it onto the platform. You can't take it off the platform. You don't have control of your wallet on there. And now you could argue that. Now, again, I know I just realized immediately that you could argue that with a lot of cryptocurrency exchanges like Coinbase, like you don't own your wallet. Well, yeah, but I can take my cryptocurrency anytime and send it offline to a wallet, or send it to a different exchange or to somebody else, period. So you do have control over it at least to a better degree than this. You're fake trading. You're basically fake trading. I don't even know why it exists, why you need to swap it back and forth. It's their own internal exchange, and they're essentially selling and buying to themselves. It makes no sense. There aren't people trading. They're essentially, there's no cryptocurrency. They own it, but it doesn't exist. Anyway, moving on to CoinMarketCap after my little rant there. $263 billion market cap. Not going too well too soon. A lot of bearish news lately. You can see on all the TA websites, bearish, bearish, bearish. Once in a while you'll see a bullish one, which makes no sense because you're like, wait, all these other ones are bearish, and then I read this one bullish, and then this one's bearish and this one's bullish. But looking a little, there's nothing on the horizon right now that's really going to be pumping Bitcoin. I can't think of anything that's particularly exciting on the horizon aside from our already past halving. So price is going down at the moment. Who knows? Whale might come along and change that any minute. But I do want to look at the Dow as well. We can see a down slope of pretty much all cryptocurrency since about 5 days ago. And again, the 5 days ago on the Dow here, 25,800 Dow, we can see that like little recovery about 7 days or about 5 days ago from all the cryptocurrency. As you can see here, just scroll on down CoinMarketCap, use an exchange, use whatever you want. But you can see it with virtually every single cryptocurrency. There was a big nasty gouge there, and so was the Dow. We could bring it back a month. You could see that gouge, and now this is on a down on the down. Let's just say, and all cryptocurrency is too. So that's just I'm sort of on a little investigation on how correlated the stock market and the cryptocurrency market has become in 2020, because we've seen it over and over so far in 2020. And quite frankly, it's not a bad or it's not a good thing. However, it is a tool for you to use in the future. People didn't want cryptocurrency to be correlated with the stock market at all, but we have to be real here that the stock market is getting more and more into cryptocurrency. Institutions that normally trade stock or futures, etc., of commodities are now trading cryptocurrency as well. So with their mindset of the stock market, if the stock market's going down, they're selling Bitcoin too. If the stock market's going up, they're buying Bitcoin too. And it really makes sense that it's going to start becoming correlated if the same people who trade stocks start trading Bitcoin. It just totally makes sense. Obviously, they're going to have the same, release relatively the same TA methods and buying and selling methods. So it could be a tool for you. If you see a massive drop in the stock market and Bitcoin hasn't dropped yet, evaluate the situation. Is it time to sell Bitcoin and wait a day for Bitcoin to drop with the stock market and then rebuy in, sort of thing? So it can be a tool in the future. But that's all I have for you guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, social media in the description below. But as usual, I'll see you guys next time.